After 3.5 months in this Airbnb, we are finally packing up again, ready for the next adventure. So before we do that, how about a BGC apartment tour? Now we'll start our grand tour awkwardly in the far corner of the unit because that gives us the best lighting and the best view of the entire unit. So when it comes to the kitchen, not a whole lot to commentate on. They have a tiny mini fridge, and then they have this stove, which I'll put the name up. I don't remember what it is, but it seems to just burn your food immediately. I hate using it. Also, quick tip here. When you are looking for Tylenol, ask for something called Biogesic, not Tylenol, because nobody knows what Tylenol here is, but they know what Biogesic is, and it's pretty much the same thing. Now we have the kitchen table, which has of course been turned into my office. I'll do another video on why on earth I have that giant screen, or actually, long story short, we thought we were going to be here longer. And then of course it's put up against the wall because I like having little corners, and that's how I like working. I like working when it feels like I'm in a corner. So moving on, then we have the living room here. Now it does come with a smart TV like most Airbnbs here do. However, I do recommend getting your own Apple TV, Roku, or Fire Stick, or Google Chromecast, or whatever else there is, because you have to remember that everything is tracking what we do, right? So I like using our own Apple TV. That way I don't ever have to worry about logging out of something or some random TV manufacturer grabbing all of my Netflix and YouTube watch preferences, because TVs do that. All smart TVs do that. So moving over to the bathroom, which we'll spend the least amount of time on, most places don't actually have a washer dryer. And so we'll get to that when we get into our tips. And then number one in the bathroom, you need one of those. Okay, that means you have hot water. Now I'll get to my rant when we're not listening to the fan, and then you probably do want to ask the Airbnb and if it's okay to flush, because not all places you can flush the toilet paper. I'm in an Avita building, so we're pretty much safe. Hello. And then to get to my little rant there, we actually lived in a place for about 6 or 9 months that had no hot water, and I never got used to taking cold showers. So I think all those YouTube videos of those Stoics were like, you're going to be so great having cold showers. No, not really. Not so fun. So we have a little built-in closet there, which I will open up. If you have someone else with you, like I did, then that's definitely not going to be enough space for all of your clothes. So I actually purchased a really cheap clothing rack, and it sat over there with all my clothes because my wife took up the whole closet.
Hello.
And then you have the bed, and it's full of all my stuff because I'm supposed to leave here tomorrow morning. So that's why all that is there. And that does it for the tour. Told you that was going to be really quick. So here's some tips on how to make sure that you actually enjoy your Airbnb stay as opposed to some of the nightmares we've had to deal with. Now, one of the reasons I really like this place, despite the higher price point compared to some of the other places, here's the prices that we've paid in the past, and of course the discount we got for now, I think prices are back to where they used to be, is pretty much because this place looks like an IKEA catalog, and that's not really normal for most Airbnbs here. Now, whatever your preferences are in terms of decor and furniture, for me, I have struggled to find a place that I could see myself being more than a couple of weeks. And mirrors. Mirrors are just everywhere, which is a YouTuber's nightmare when you're trying to find one corner where you can actually work and record at the same time. Mirrors just abound. So I'll get off my soapbox and actually talk about some things that might be helpful to you in terms of booking places here in BGC or just Metro Manila in general. I'm not talking about the whole Philippines, just Metro Manila. So I, over the past 2 years, have lived in BGC, Makati, Rockwell, and Quezon City. So those cover most of the major areas here. So when it comes to moving in, number one, always ask before you book what documentation the person needs. So whether you're local or you're a foreigner, every single city here has a different process for moving into a building. So you have to worry about the city's requirements, and then you have to worry about the building's requirements. And then sometimes the requirements will change based upon where you are coming from. So if you're a foreigner like myself, and you want to check out BGC, you want to check out Makati, you want to check out Quezon City or some other places, you'll actually want to go to BGC first, because out of all the places, BGC has been the most stringent and, in my personal opinion, the most ridiculous in terms of information that they've needed from us just to book an Airbnb. Now, I'm talking about this outside of all of the quarantine and lockdown and social distancing requirements that just added on top of what was already there. So irrespective of where you are booking, just go ahead and ask what documents they require and make sure that your passport is enough when it comes to identification, because if you just show up, you're not going to have any sort of local ID. So you want to make sure that your passport is in fact accepted. Now, tip number 2, read the fine print to make sure that utilities are all inclusive. There are a lot of places here that have really good prices, and then you'll dig into the details and you'll see that it's because they have an electricity or a water cap. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to ever go over it. Some of them are reasonable, others are like 500 pesos, and you go, there's no way, right? Because especially if it's a larger place. And so you just want to keep that in mind, and you can ask what the rates are. Personally, we just avoided that. As soon as we saw that, we avoided it because they're going to ask for cash or a check, which obviously no foreigner has checks here. And it's a mucky process that they typically want to do outside of Airbnb. And I'd rather just put everything on a debit or credit card and be done with it. That's the whole point of an Airbnb versus actually booking a place locally for rent, which would be a whole nother video, which it's okay. So number 3 here, I almost got sidetracked. Number 3, ask what the internet speed is, and then ask for some sort of verification. Now, some Airbnb people or listers will actually genuinely get offended that you ask, even if it's in their listing. But you do want to ask for some sort of verification, like a screenshot. And even if they say no, at least you asked, right? And then also ask what the provider is. So Globe and PLDT, you're good to go there. 25 and above, you're going to be fine working. Anything below 25, and you're probably going to hate yourself. And the reason that I say that is because 25 here versus 25, what I'm used to, let's say in Seattle, Washington, seems to be very, very different. I cannot tell you how many times I've run a speed test on my phone and gone, okay, I'm at 25, I'm at 50, I'm at 100, but I'm struggling to get Google Slides to load. Like, there's a complete disconnect, and it mostly seems to have to do with the consistency of the connection. So it's really fast, but the ping's really high, so it just hits you all at once, right? Which makes live streaming and video conferencing difficult at times. So make sure that you ask. Personally, the only one that I've run into that was really, really bad in terms of internet was Sky. For some reason, the first place we stayed here, the internet was supposed to be like 1 or 5 MIPS, and I could barely get my email to load. Like, it was super bad. And then you also want to ask which carrier is better. So you want to ask the Airbnb host if Globe or Smart works better in their unit. And so those are going to be the mobile carriers, because I've stayed at places where I just hotspotted my phone and completely ignored the router because it was just that terrible. I just put my phone by the window, and I was happier with my live streams and my meetings with clients as opposed to the choppiness that I would sometimes get on the router. So number 4 here is going to deal with services. And so if you don't have a washer dryer unit in your unit, that was a silly way to say that, then you want to make sure that there is one within a block. And so this is 3 minutes or less, because lugging your laundry around, even if it's only a 5-minute walk, is no fun. And spoiler alert, it's super hot, it's super humid. So every time you lug all your laundry back, you're gonna have to take a shower, and congratulations, you just made more laundry for yourself. So personally, I've always found places that have laundry. Obviously, those are more expensive, but there are a lot of buildings in the Metro Manila area that have a laundry service downstairs or at least across the street. And so if it's more than across the street, if it's going to take you more than 3 minutes from the exit of your building to the laundromat, then I would recommend not doing it. You're really not going to be happy. It is not a compromise that I think anyone would be happy making. Now, the second part of our services here is asking about cleaning. Most places don't include cleaning, but you can ask if there is cleaning available and what the fee is. Most of the time, the fees are relatively reasonable, and because of the quarantine status of most places here, you're going to be able to have someone come clean. If you have any problems with eczema or asthma, you definitely want someone to clean. It gets so freaking dusty here. It is incredible. And if you do have those types of problems, make sure you ask when the last time the AC was cleaned. I've been here 3 months, and this particular place, they do a really good job cleaning. They have a cleaning included, which is part of why the price is so high. And I have been here in another unit when they go and actually clean out the entire unit, but you just want to make sure that it hasn't been like 6 or 9 months since they've cleaned the AC, because that's really going to affect the air quality, and your asthma can get really, like I said asthma and I put it in my hand. Your asthma or your eczema can get really bad. I won't zoom in because nobody needs to see that, but my hands have just been destroyed here because the AC unit needs to be cleaned. But you know, I'm leaving tomorrow, so I'm not going to complain. We'll just let them know when we leave that they should clean the AC. Now, the final thing here on number 4, I know I squeezed 3 in here, is to ask about packages and your access to the concierge, because some buildings will do absolutely nothing for packages. Other buildings will take them for you and put them behind the desk. And other buildings like this one will just have a giant table outside, and they'll put all the packages there, and they'll just number them with your unit, and you can go down and collect it. You don't want to stay in a building that isn't going to at least put the packages someplace for you, because it is incredibly hard to coordinate with any sort of orders that are coming in, especially if you're doing Shopee or Lazada, which are the 2 major places that we tend to shop. I like Lazada because they take US credit cards and Amex, and I'm just kind of a snob like that. I want my American Express points. Now, finally, number 5 has to do with amenities, and that's just making sure that your Airbnb booking for the length of time that you're staying actually includes the amenities of the building. Now, there are lots of different rules on how buildings treat Airbnbs and how long you have to stay in order to get the amenities. Sometimes you have to pay more, but if you're really interested in, say, the gym they have or the pool that they have, make sure that as an Airbnb or renter, you're going to have access to those, or if you have to pay an additional cost. Some buildings we stayed in, it was just like 20 pesos or 50 pesos, so like $1 every time you wanted to use the pool or the gym. Other places, they just straight up say, nope, you're on Airbnb, so you're not allowed to use anything, right? So just go ahead and make sure you check with your host if that's important to you. If there's a common like walk around area, for the most part, you're able to use those as long as you have a key card. And so this leads me into a rapid round. I know I said 5, but real quick wrapping up. Number 1, if you ever want to have guests outside of even the lockdowns, make sure you ask about what the building's policies are for that. We've had some places, even before all of this craziness, where they wouldn't even let my brother-in-law up. Like, it was ridiculous, right? They made us carry all of our stuff down by ourselves. They wouldn't let anyone else up. And other buildings would just sign in and have a good time, right? So you definitely want to check that. Most of the buildings don't have parking, and so you can ask, but for the most part, parking is pretty much always taken unless the unit owner paid for parking in addition, because the way real estate works here, you buy the unit and then you buy parking separately. So most people who rent out for Airbnb, they didn't spring the extra 100,000 pesos to go ahead and purchase a parking spot. And finally, make sure that you get the phone number of the concierge to the building and the phone number to your unit so that you're actually able to call the concierge, and so that if you're working with anyone locally, it's easier for them to call that number than trying to figure out Smart Globe or whatever SIM card you're currently using with your phone. So thank you so much for watching. Sincerely hope you have some better ideas on how to be successful booking on Airbnb here in the Philippines, specifically the Metro Manila area. And we'll make sure you hit that subscribe button, because we'll do a massive comparison of all of the places I've lived over the past 2 years as I wrap up my first stint here in the Philippines. So until the next, keep building the business you love.